Hey, welcome back to 7 Steps to Smile. Today we're going to explore why the brain uses effort as a shortcut for value, when that instinct helps us, and when it traps us. And then, how we can see things more clearly. Have you ever spent hours in the kitchen cooking something only to realize it tastes fine? Not amazing, not worth the mess, just fine. But then your brain goes and tries to convince you that the food is better than it actually is. Or when I do this, like spend days making perfectly color-coded study notes, and then while I'm writing the exam, I realize the notes actually didn't teach me much. But if you're like me, you still keep using that method because you spent so long on it. That's the effort heuristic. Your brain confusing effort with effectiveness. It's this mental glitch that makes us overvalue anything that we struggle to make. It's a shortcut that makes us sometimes mistake effort for value. I know that this pops up in my life a lot, and I can't tell you the amount of times that I've made a mistake trying to do something, and I try to fix the mistake. I try to fix something rather than admit I should just start again, when starting again would probably be the better option. And more often than not, trying to fix it makes it worse. We humans love to believe that if it took a lot of effort, it must be worthwhile. But effort isn't the receipt for value. Effort isn't the yardstick that we use to measure how valuable something is. The effort heuristic is a term coined by Kruger, Wirtz, and Van Boven in 2004. They came up with the idea, or they clarified the idea, that people judge something as higher quality simply because it took more effort to make. The heuristic, or the cognitive shortcut, is that effort feels like a sacrifice. The sacrifice feels meaningful, and in our minds, meaning equals value. This is a deeply evolutionary trait that's hardwired into us. Hard things kept us alive. Effort is required from hard things. And that's why we give value to these effortful hard things. A more modern example, more relatable example maybe, is handmade versus machine-made. Art that is handmade versus art that comes off a conveyor belt. Art that took 10 years to complete feels valuable even before we see it. But mass-produced, manufactured art doesn't feel as valuable. Studying for hours and not learning efficiently is another example of this effort heuristic. Because we can spend a long time doing not much at all, but spending a lot of effort over content or over some task. Over-preparing is another example of the effort heuristic. You could be well prepared within 2 hours, and then you expend more and more effort and energy and time when it's not needed. Another example is maybe spending weeks on a decision because the mental gymnastics that you put yourself through trying to calculate every single path and trying to figure out which decision to make feels like you're actually putting more value into this decision. It feels more important. But if you take anything away from this episode, it should be this. The effort heuristic for a lot of people makes us feel that easy success doesn't count. And that's because we put so much value on hard things. When something comes easy to us, we feel like it's not valuable. We're going to talk about how we can deal with these challenges. But before we do that, I want to sum up what the effort heuristic is. Your brain has a bias. If it hurt, it must be worth it. But effort isn't bad, but it's also not a measurement tool. We treat it like a measurement tool. We treat effort as a commodity. The society that we live in glorifies effort with things like hustle culture, terms like no pain, no gain, or you have to suffer for your art. We're conditioned to believe that value lives on the other side of struggle. And that's because it kind of does. Everything that you want from life is on the other side of many, many hard things. But not every difficult thing is worth it. And not every easy thing is not worth it. That might be difficult to hear and accept, but some things that come easy to you are valuable. You're good at many things, but you're probably really good at a few things, and those things are valuable. But this idea that not every difficult thing is worth it is something that people have understood for a while now, and businesses exploit this fact. Luxury brands emphasize craftsmanship and difficulty that go into their products. Universities emphasize workload in their courses. And fitness challenges advertise intensity over effectiveness. Things that make it difficult over what the results actually are. Even productivity influencers glorify the grind mode. But effort is not a currency, even if we keep spending it like it is. We often choose the harder option because the difficulty makes it feel more legitimate. And that's the issue, because that's what squirrels its way into our decision making. That's what squirrels the effort heuristic into our decision making. And it ends up with us not making the best decisions. And that's why we shouldn't always trust the effort value link or the effort heuristic. And when shouldn't we trust it? Well, hard doesn't mean meaningful. That's the one thing that we need to get out of our heads right now. Hard does not mean meaningful. Some things are difficult and some things are hard because they're poorly designed. And some things are easy because you're good at them, not because they're worthless. The example that I want to give you is something called the labor illusion. You and I, we like products more when we see the effort behind them, even if the effort doesn't improve the outcome. I know for me, when I go to a restaurant and I can see the cooks and I can there's a window into the kitchen and I can see them preparing the food, for some reason, I feel like the food actually tastes a little bit better. I don't know if I'm alone in this, but I'm sure if we got 2 plates of food, one that I saw the effort go into it and one that I didn't, and I tasted both, I probably would prefer the one where I saw the effort go into it. And that's just another example of the effort heuristic. And that's an example of the labor illusion from the research that I found. But the question that this brings up, and the question that we need to ask ourselves is, am I valuing this, whatever it is, am I valuing this because it's good or because it took a long time? The danger is we start putting value on the effort that we've spent already. We start putting value on the time that we spent, the attention, all of these things that are gone, all of these sunk costs. We start putting value on these things. And when we do that, we decide that something needs more time, something needs more effort. We keep doing this and we keep throwing our effort into this bottomless pit until we burn out. And all this lost time is just lost. But we feel like it means something, because if it doesn't, we just wasted our effort. We wasted our energy and our time. And this leads to an emotional attachment to bad decisions. The key here is that you shouldn't confuse difficulty with depth. Not everything difficult is worth it. I've spoken about sunk costs, the value that we put on spent energy, spent time, and spent effort. But once we invested this effort, we feel like we have to justify it. And that's the sunk cost fallacy. That's a branch of the sunk cost fallacy in this context. That's one of the dangers of overvaluing effort. I'm going to speak to you about 4 dangers of overvaluing effort, and that's the first. The second is the perfectionism loop. That's overworking something until you ruin it. Or, in my case with this podcast, never release it. I worked and worked and worked on trying to get the video for this podcast or trying to get everything perfect, and I almost went a whole year without releasing anything, but I just sat down one day and I told myself I have to get something out, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. And before it can even be close to perfect, it has to exist. Before it is good, it has to exist, right? So the perfectionism loop is another danger of overvaluing effort. You keep working and working and working, pouring effort into something, and it never sees daylight. The third thing is the identity problem. When we tie our worth, how much we value ourselves, to how hard we work and how much effort we put into things, when we rest, we feel like a failure. And you are so much more than how hard you work and how much effort you put into it. Yes, how much effort you put into stuff is a big reflection on your character, and it might be a big part of who you are, but there's so much more. My therapist says that we're all like onions, and I really like that example because that means that there's so many more layers to you that not everybody gets to see. The fourth and final danger that I'm going to speak about overvaluing effort, is tunnel vision. So when I talk about tunnel vision in this context, I'm speaking about effort blinding you to alternatives. When you pour effort into something, everything else feels like we've taken so many steps away from other solutions, that we're on the cusp of something here, or we've already too far down this road. And we mistake the resistance that we encounter when we're doing something that maybe we should think about pivoting or just dropping, honestly. We mistake that resistance for meaning. And we just get tunnel vision in this one spot, and we can't see any other way around, when there might be, and there probably are, plenty of alternatives. The brain gets attached to this struggle. It's a survival pattern, and effort becomes a trap when it stops being a choice. Okay, so what do we do? Right? We've spoken about the dangers of overvaluing effort. We've spoken about what the effort heuristic is, and what do we do to combat it? How do we find balance? Because we do need to do hard things. I'm going to speak to you about 7 practical tools that you can implement in your life right now to combat this effort heuristic that everybody encounters. Okay? The first is the outcome check. It's a simple question. Is this getting better or just getting longer? And the key to this is to stop when you stop seeing marginal improvements over a period of time. Now, that doesn't mean every single day, right? Because you're not going to see consistent marginal improvements every single day in everything that you do, right? Sometimes it's going to be 50%. Sometimes it's going to be 90%. Sometimes it's going to be 1%. Sometimes it might even go into the negative. Sometimes you might take a step backwards in a day. But that's just, we're human. We're not going to be consistent in the constant sense every single day. But we can be consistent in the way we show up every single day. And over time, that compounds. Over weeks, over months, that compounds. And the way that we can make sure that we're answering this question well, and the way we can make sure we're answering this question properly, is maybe by keeping a journal, right? Because I know for me, when I go back and I read pages of a journal that I've written a while ago, I can see the progress that I've made. And I can identify the person that wrote what I'm reading. And I can also identify that I'm not that person anymore. I've grown beyond him. And I really appreciate him for taking the time to show me that. So that's the first, the outcome check. The second is the 70% rule. It's aim to complete a task to 70% quality first. Once you do that, more often than not, you'll realize that it's done. This is a way to break the perfectionism loop, right? So aim to complete it to 70% first, and then you can decide if it needs extra refinement. This breaks the work hard first instinct and the perfectionism loop that is one of the dangers of the effort heuristic that we spoke about. The third thing that I'm going to speak to you about is a framework. It's the value before effort framework. It's 3 questions that set a criteria before you start anything, okay? You ask yourself, what does good look like in what I'm doing? What does good look like? Second, how will I measure value? And third, what outcome matters to me? Those 3 questions will give you a clear idea of where you are and how you're progressing in whatever task or whatever project you're undertaking. Once you set this criteria, effort cannot muddy your judgment anymore. That's the value before effort framework. The fourth thing that we're going to speak about is the easy test. I've said if something is easy for you, you should consider that it might be your strength. That's the easy test. Not everything that is easy for you is a sign that it's not worth it, right? Some things lend to your natural ability, okay? That's the fourth thing. Just be more compassionate and take a little time to consider that you are good at some things, okay? 5, limit how long you allow yourself to improve at something. Time boxing. This makes effort more intentional and less emotional. I did this while I was studying. So I gave myself specific boxes of time to study, to do this task. And what I realized was, 1, it was more quality time that I was spending studying. And 2, I didn't just get up and leave or get up and take a break whenever I wanted because I knew I had to finish by a certain time. So more than the quality that I was spending studying, I took all the emotion out of it. I was more intentional, and it actually worked very, very well for me. The 6th thing, penultimate, is ask the killer question. The killer question is, if I had to start from scratch again, would I recreate this? Would I do this the same way? And if not, you're stuck in the effort trap. Just think about that for a second. Whatever you're doing, if you had to do it all over again, if you had to start from scratch, if you wouldn't do it in the exact same way, then you've taken the longer road. You've taken the scenic route. You've done something. Maybe you've made mistakes. But if you can recognize that those were mistakes, then you're not in the effort trap. If you cannot recognize those mistakes, then you are assigning value to things that took you extra effort when they weren't necessary. And that means that the effort heuristic has you, okay? That killer question really, really brings everything around full circle. If I had to start again from scratch, would I recreate this in the exact same way? And lastly, the 7th tool is practice letting go. Release one small project or decision each week before it feels perfect, right? Before it feels like I've got it. This is another way to break the perfectionism loop, but it's also a good way to learn. The best way to learn what to do next is feedback. Don't be afraid of feedback. It's just information. You can choose what to do with information once you have it, but you can't get it before you put yourself in a position to receive it. So release the one small project, complete the one small decision before it feels perfect. Okay? Practice letting go. The idea of all of these tools is that it's a more intentional way to use your effort. Effort is important, but effort is a tool. It's not a moral value. It's not something that decides how valuable you are as a person. It's a tool that you can use to improve circumstances, situations, and yourself. Right? So, what have we spoken about today? We've spoken about this mental glitch that has us all under its thumb if we're not careful, if we're not aware of it, this effort heuristic, right? We've spoken about how we're prone to equating effort to value, but effort isn't value. We've spoken about how we give things extra meaning when they feel harder, but we only do that because we're scared of what it means if they were just lost. And lastly, you are not your hard work. You are not the effort that you put into things, even if it's a great sign of your character. What I want us to take away from today is we need to work hard when it matters, not just because it's hard. Don't waste your time and your energy like that. It's so much more valuable. Your time and your energy and your effort is so much more valuable. Work hard when it matters. And this week, pick one task and do the opposite of what you normally do. Instead of trying harder, ask what will make this easier. You might find that you become more efficient in this task. You become more clear. It's not laziness. Thank you. And I'll see you again next week.